And welcome back into another live edition of the North Star Takes podcast with Bailey Policki and Jacob Liberta. Feel free to hit that subscribe button on this channel if you haven't already, and spread the word to your sports-loving friends as well. This week, we're obviously going to be going over Week 2 defeat for the Minnesota Vikings as they lose to the Cardinals in absolute heartbreaking but classic Minnesota Vikings fashion. 34-33. It was a really hard-fought game. It was a very entertaining game, honestly, from start to finish. Kind of an offensive shootout, which I think a lot of people were expecting almost, especially with the Cardinals. You knew you'd have to put up a lot of points. But defense, once again, did not look very good, which is starting to be concerning for Mike Zimmer. And, of course, once again, it has to come down to the kicker, and he can't make the field goal. It's a 37-yard field goal. NFL kickers are expected to make that kick. So overall, I guess, what are your main takeaways from this game? Such a heartbreaker. It's hard to know where to start, obviously, besides the kicker.
Yeah, I know, right? This feels like obviously just not one of those painful losses that you've been a Vikings fan for a long time. You feel like you've just been there before. Obviously, the first one everybody probably thinks of in the modern era is the Blair Walsh miss in the playoffs against the Seahawks. Like, this is pretty comparable, I'd say. Especially, I mean, the deficit was the same too. We were down 1, so it wasn't like if you missed, we had a chance at overtime like we didn't. It was all or nothing right there. And especially from 37 yards out, like that was a little bit deeper in Walsh's kick, but still, as an NFL kicker, you expect them to make their kicks within 40 yards for sure, hopefully within 45. And if you have a good one, then you can go all the way up to 50. But you feel like if you miss one of those kicks in a game, whatever, it just happens. But for him to miss 2, including that extra point, that's pretty tough to look past. But like you said, there's a multitude of other reasons as to why we lost this game. I think our defense really let us down, especially in that first half. They really just plain and simply play bad, and they have to improve their level of play. They can't come out flat to start a game, and they got to set the tone early, and they just didn't do that in this game, especially with the back-breaking field goal that ended up being the difference right before the half that the Cardinals scored within the matter of like 20 seconds or whatever it was on the game clock when they got the ball back. So that's just disappointing, and especially when you end up losing by 1, that's just that hurts. That hurts, and it's hard to look at anything that happened today in a positive light after losing a game that you feel like you definitely should have won. But I think we can definitely dive into some of the silver linings that we saw today, even though it's not all about obviously moral victories. But sometimes you gotta, especially in week 2 when it's early in the season, you gotta find something to be happy about to look forward to next week.
Yeah, I will say it was nice to see the offense come to life this week. I thought for the most part they looked fantastic. There was a while there in the second half where they didn't really do a whole lot. They had a few 3-and-outs. I don't think we were great on third down today. We were 1 of 9 at one point, I believe, in the game. So, yeah, it was good to see the offense come out strong. Dalvin Cook got banged up, which I think had a lot to do with it. But we've talked about that before as well. If you're going to keep running this guy into the ground, he's going to get banged up. I think Zimmer came out after the game and said he might have a little ankle sprain, whatever that means. If he has a sprained ankle, I'm not going to expect him to play next week, but we can get into that more later as well. But overall, it was good to see KJ Osborne once again pop. He looked fantastic. He's a legit wide receiver 3.
That's awesome.
He looks like he's a great route runner. He's got speed. He can separate. I think he's more than just like a slot receiver. I think he's capable of being a solid receiver, especially if like Thielen or Jefferson have to miss time. So that's very encouraging. I thought overall the offensive line played pretty well today. There were some moments. Rashad Hill got torched by Chandler Jones one time. But overall did a pretty solid job, I'd say. Didn't really notice Bradbury or Cleveland getting pushed back too much. There was so many holes in the running game, which was good to see as well. Dalvin had a great first half, it was just peak, classic Dalvin, especially classic early season Dalvin when he's always looking fresh.
Exactly.
But I mean, the first half was very encouraging, and then they kind of ended with, on a sour note where it looked like we had a fumble recovery on the 2-yard line, and then they changed it because you still have to get 2 feet in bounds on a fumble recovery, which is a goofy sort of rule.
I know. Yeah.
They end up scoring instantly after that, which of course, huge change of momentum. Then the offense comes and goes 3-and-out, punt the ball back to Arizona. They're able to march down the field, and they score again. And then you got the Matt Prater, 62-yard field goal.
Oh, Bailey.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, some technical difficulties.
Yeah, as you're saying, keep going.
Yeah, and then of course, the Matt Prater 62-yard field goal, which he always seems to kill us. I mean, that guy will hit a bomb against us every time he plays us.
I know.
Vikings probably should have tried to sign him, honestly, this offseason when he didn't re-sign with Detroit, but that's another discussion as well. So, yeah, overall, and Ryan Dressel brings up a good point as well. Zimmer's inability to manage the game is just pathetic. I mean, I am getting closer and closer to the fire Zimmer line. I mean, this guy has been coaching for 8 years in the NFL. All he cares about is calling his defense. And it's just pathetic. I mean, this guy never manages the clock well. I thought the end of the first half was a disaster with the defense. I mean, 16 seconds, you let him get 30, 40 yards to kick a field goal. And then especially at the end of the game, we had 35 seconds left on the clock. It's first down. We're on like the, 19-yard line? Run another play or two. Try and get 10 more yards. Make it a closer field goal. Make it so it's almost a no-doubt field goal.
Yeah.
Instead, they let the clock run all the way down, even though they still have a timeout left. And 4 seconds left, and Greg Joseph kicks and misses, and the game's over. So I'm with Ryan on this one. I think Zimmer's inability to manage the game is so unbelievably frustrating. It's all because he just focuses on defense.
Yeah, I know. This has certainly been a reoccurring theme, honestly, in Mike Zimmer's tenure here, ever since he started as Vikings head coach. I think the clock management's been his Achilles heel, among other things, and it's kind of disappointing that it just doesn't feel like it's smooth operating when we get in these 2-minute situations and we really need to clock manage. He just doesn't seem able to do it because I think he's, like you said, he's pretty focused on the defensive side of the ball and obviously calling plays. And maybe he should, after all these years, just start delegating this to his co-defensive coordinators. You'd imagine one of them be able to at least call a game pretty similar to what he'd do anyway. But at the same time, I'm personally still a Zim guy. I know he might take a lot of heat for this game today, and rightfully so. I mean, his pride and joy is the defense, and the defense is really what lost us this game today. So there's no looking past that. But I'm still a Zimmer guy. I still want to give him the season. I think he's had pretty steady success here. Obviously, we haven't gotten to where we want to go because we haven't made a Super Bowl yet, and that's the ultimate goal. But at the same time, I think he's just been a good coach, probably the best one we've had, or I would say he's the best one we've had since Denny Green. Obviously, the bar isn't set high with guys like Leslie Frazier and Brad Childress and Mike Tice, but still, I think he deserves a little bit more love than hating on him in game 2. But at the same time, I think it's fair to also criticize him to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to come on here and bash Cousins whatsoever. Kirk played a good game. Yeah. I'm not going to be down on him. The whole offense really wasn't good in the third quarter. But Kirk was good today. He led a potential game-winning drive, which is what we're paying him to do, what we've been asking him to do. Yep. He's at no fault for today's game. But I'm getting closer to the point where I'm just asking for a bit of a reset here. I think coach for sure, probably quarterback simply just because of the contract. And you have Kellen Mond, who you're grooming, hopefully. Yeah. And potentially even the GM. Like all these draft misses, once again, are starting to show up with the lack of depth.
Sure.
Bashad Breeland was a disaster today. I mean, why that this emphasizes my point from last week. Cam Dancer wasn't active, and Bashad Breeland's getting torched by AJ Green. Last week he was getting torched by Jamar Chase. And Cam Dancer comes in today when Breeland gets hurt and looks way better. I mean, what are you doing making your third-round pick from last year inactive? Even if he had a poor preseason or training camp, that is just unbelievably horrible decision-making. And I'm sure it's Zimmer's choice because he's the head coach. But if he's one of your corners, which is apparently Zim's pride and joy, he's a third-round pick, how can you not even have him active for the first game of the season? And then he comes in today and looks like he should have been playing all along. He might be our starting corner next week opposite of Patrick Peterson. It's just unbelievable. I'm getting so fed up with Zimmer's crap. And then he comes out after the game today and says, I think there's some promising things in today's game. I'm not too upset. He's not going to come out and bash the kicker. I don't expect that either.
No. I don't think he should, honestly.
No, I don't think that's good. And honestly, Greg Joseph lost us this game, but I'm fine with rolling with him, for at least a little while yet, because he's been solid. He's hit some 50-yard field goals. But that's beside the point. Zimmer in his post-game press conference just seemed disconnected from reality, honestly. And I think we're a pretty good football team. Oh, well, you're 0-2, so it's time to start winning some football games.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Zimmer that I think we are a pretty good football team. Like you said, this is a results-driven league, and that means we got to win games. And if we're not, then we really got to reevaluate what we're doing here. But I think also to add on to that, your comments, how he shouldn't make comments about Greg Joseph, and especially not making any roster moves or anything like that. I actually think that Joseph should be here to stay, because if you cut him, it's not only like that's demoralizing for him, but just think about any kicker you try to bring in, like thinking that you have that thin of a margin for error that you literally got to make all these kicks, otherwise you're gonna be cut at the first sign of trouble, first mistakes, and that's kind of that one really set a good precedent, so that can't happen. And then, like you said, I maybe Sim's just trying something different and trying some positive reinforcement, because I know lately he's definitely been getting into the team, especially publicly, and just coming out and challenging guys. Maybe he's just taking a different approach to kind of get the guys in a different mindset towards this home opener coming up against the Seahawks that almost feels like, quote unquote, a must win. But I really think we gotta clean up in these home games coming up here, and hopefully the crowd will be rocking again at US Bank, and that'll help our defense. Honestly, I think it should. I think all defenses play better at home, so I think that should help us dramatically, I'd imagine. So
yeah,
I think I think that should be the kickstart that we need next week. Just being back at US Bank in front of the crowd, and just hopefully the defense improving, and basically playing like they did in the second half, because obviously I think they did a better job of minimizing, especially big plays against Kyler Murray and company. So
yeah, I would agree. It's just tough, man. We always struggle against the Seahawks. It's tough to expect much going into that game. Yeah. Johnny says comfortable with mediocrity, and honestly, no, I'm not. I mean, other than 2017, which I truly believe was a fluke season. I mean, Zimmer's defense was at its absolute peak, and that's great. It was the number one defense in the NFL. All the top players were in their prime. But I don't know, man. Case Keenum, lightning in a bottle. It was crazy and it was fun. They got stomped in the NFC Championship game. I just don't see them having another season like that with Mike Zimmer here. I really don't. And it's to the point in the NFL where you need to at least win your division, preferably it used to be a top 2 seed, so you could get that bye week. Now only the top seeds get a bye week, so it's a little harder to accomplish. Yes. Especially when you got like Brady and the Pats, and the Rams look really good. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it happening again, and I think Zimmer's clock is ticking here. I think his act is running out. The defense isn't elite, not even close. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to be a defensive head coach and only care about defense, then
they better be good.
Yeah, exactly. The defense better be good. So I don't understand it whatsoever. We got a Cardinals fan chiming in here. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add on real quick with John's comment. I like that he brought up the term, especially mediocrity. I think that's something that we all gotta really think about, especially as the season goes along. If we're trending towards an 8-9, 9-8 record or something, then there's got to be changes made. We can't just sit here meddling at 500 because we're not getting in the playoffs or maybe scratching in, and we're also not getting good draft picks. So at some point, then changes need to be made, so then we get out of this like avoiding the disaster, but not actually really getting anywhere, accomplishing any goals that everybody sets out to go and achieve. So I think that's a good point Johnny brought up. And again, I'm still a Zim guy, but if we go 8-9, 9-8 again, and it's just more of the same thing as we've had these last few years, especially with Kirk, I think that it's time for some pretty big changes within this Vikings organization.
Yeah, for sure. So Parker chimes in. He's a Cardinals fan. You guys put a scare in us. Hunter looks legit, and Cook could not be stopped. That was a lucky win for us. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of lucky at the end there, but it's also the Vikings who have horrible luck. So I think every Vikings fan was almost expecting Greg Joseph to miss that kick.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals played a great game today as well. I mean, Kyler Murray is just amazing. Like,
yes,
that's exactly what we want as Vikings fans. We want a quarterback that can evade a defensive end who's coming at him freely, turn around, roll out to his left, and just chuck a ball all the way down the field.
Yep, and make that throw on 4th down to Christian Kirk. Albeit, I feel like Matt could have played that coverage better, but at the same time, like, how many times is he really going to throw off his back foot with all this pressure in his face and just hit Kirk down the field at the 5 like that? Like, that's just a big-time throw from a big-time quarterback that, I'm jealous that they have and we don't. But
yeah, and that's what's happening in the league now. I mean, I don't know the exact number, but it feels like you look across the league and well over half the teams have a quarterback that's either on a rookie deal or has been drafted within like the last 5 years and is very good.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say too that add on with Murray too, and other things to be excited about in Arizona. We got the Cardinals fan in here. I would say that after today, I liked Rondale Moore a lot at Purdue, but I think he was used definitely correctly today in this offense, and I think he's got a lot of potential there and a lot of explosive plays in him that I think is going to really add a nice piece to this offense.
For sure, yeah. I think the Cardinals have a lot to be excited about there. The defense isn't fantastic, and like Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt are older players.
Yeah.
I think Budda Baker's an extremely good player. He made some really good tackles today. But yeah, I think that offense is going to be able to carry them. I mean, they have so much playmaking all over the place. I thought Chase Edmonds looked pretty good today.
Yeah.
He's a solid receiving option out of the backfield as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, who kind of got shut down a little bit by Patrick Peterson, which was encouraging for us to see.
Sure.
Christian Kirk's a good receiver. AJ Green even burnt Rashad Breeland a couple times today, which was just sad to see.
Yeah. Got that touchdown, yeah, for sure. I know that's a pretty rough one. And I'd also add, I like that he called out too here. Hunter was phenomenal. 3 sacks. I mean, that's just great. I'm glad that Hunter is back. I think he's definitely a comeback player of the year candidate here. I know it's early and we've only played a couple games, but he has 4 sacks. So, I mean, that's obviously a nice start. And I think he'll have a career year this year as far as just setting a new season sack total high for the years he's been in this league. So I'm pretty excited about that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the most encouraging signs from today's game is Danielle Hunter just looks absolutely amazing. Yeah. This guy is going to get paid in the offseason, and it better be by us.
It better be.
You can't lose a guy like that in his prime. I mean, that's like letting Jared Allen just walk or Everson Griffin in his prime walk. You can't let that happen. I don't think they will. Although if Zimmer's gone, they might have a little bit different of an outlook on it. But,
sure.
Yeah, it's go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I know this is kind of pushing the envelope a little bit here and maybe comparing apples to oranges, but I know, for instance, the Rams, they have McVay, who obviously is completely offensive-centric focused, but they obviously pay Donald a ton of money. But, I mean, Donald is the best defensive player in the league. So, I mean, that's a little bit different, but kind of along the same lines. But
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I think, the offense looked good. I was very impressed with Dalvin Cook. It was so good to see him look like his true self today, up until he looked like he twisted his ankle or something.
Okay.
The receivers looked good. I still think we got to get Justin Jefferson the ball more, man. I'm so worried ever since the Stephon Diggs thing that if you get because I think Thielen's going to be a Viking as long as he wants to play.
Yeah.
As long as he's able to produce and he can play, he's going to retire a Viking. I mean, he's a Minnesota guy. We don't have to worry about that kind of stuff with him. But I think Jefferson, it's only year 2, but he's already shown some frustration. And I don't know if it's with the quarterback. I don't know if it's with the offense or if it's with even some of the way he's being officiated. He's been showing quite a bit of frustration already this season. And I'm kind of concerned that stuff's going to start boiling over here. And he's only in year 2. I mean, we have him under contract for 3 more seasons, given that he's got the 5th-year option. So they need to start tuning this offense more to him. I love Dalvin Cook. He's going to get the ball a lot, but Justin Jefferson has got to be the main focus of this offense, especially at the receiver position. I understand Adam Thielen is Kirk's go-to guy, but you got to keep Justin Jefferson happy.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely love to see us stretch the offense a little bit more. Like today, I don't think we took enough deep shots as much as I would have liked to. I think a lot of it, I mean, we were good in the intermediate passing game, especially in that first half, but I would have liked to see a few more shots because obviously that Osborne one was a huge home run play, but I mean, he was wide open. Nobody was within 20 yards of him, so that was pretty easy read. At the same time, we saw that deep ball to Justin Jefferson on a 3rd and 3, which kind of seemed like an interesting spot to take a shot, but I mean, I like that they did, but yeah, it's just picking our spots is huge, and I think maybe that'll come with time with Clint Kubiak. Obviously, it's just game 2 calling plays, so maybe that'll get better. But at the same time, I feel like that kind of reminded me of what Gary would do last year. So I think maybe, I mean, you'd like to think that he'll probably, I mean, why wouldn't you? Gary Kubiak's a legendary coach, and I think you should probably close resemble him at least at first to see what works and what doesn't, and then hopefully kind of evolve into your own play caller and evolve into leaning on your own tendencies and what you feel like works, especially for this modern game. So I would like to see as time goes on this season, like you mentioned, just getting Jefferson involved, and especially in the deep passing game, kind of like we did with Diggs for a while there when Kirk first came to town. So.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, like you mentioned Clint, I think Clint's doing a good job overall.
Yeah.
He's bringing some uniqueness to this offense. We're seeing some things we haven't seen before. I think the 4 wide set is kind of interesting. I think Kirk's actually looked pretty decent in the 4 wide set out of the shotgun. I know Kirk's not really a shotgun quarterback. He prefers to do the play action, which we haven't done a whole lot of, which has kind of been disappointing. Yeah. But I think Clint's had some really good moments, and he's had some questionable moments, and I think that's perfectly on par for a first-year play caller. Sure. It's hard to expect a whole lot out of him. I think the offense, save the first half in Cincinnati, has looked pretty darn good. So I would say 2 games into the season so far, special teams was fantastic week 1. It was pretty good week 2, except for the final kick.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say the main problem has been the defense so far.
It's hard to disagree there, especially when we're pouring all our resources into the defense in the offseason with all that free agent money. Like, it better be good, and it just hasn't lived up to the standard I think Zimmer has probably set for them internally. So I think something's got to get better there, especially in a hurry, because the percentages certainly don't. It's already at the point where we're 0-2 and percentages don't favor us to make the playoffs. Since 1990, only 12% of teams that have started 0-2 have gone on to make the playoffs. So I don't like those odds. So I think something has to get better in a hurry, and got to start next week against Russell Wilson in Seattle.
Yeah, you said next week is pretty much a must-win.
It feels like it.
I would agree. I would have argued this week was a must-win, even though, now that we lost in close fashion, heartbreaking fashion, we were in position to win the game. I'm willing to put it off one more week, I'd say.
Yeah.
We struggle so much against the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, and it's so hard for me to see us beating him. He's a winning quarterback, and he has our number. And I think truly Zimmer struggles to scheme against quarterbacks like Kyler Murray today, Russell Wilson next week, guys that can easily break contain, which it's hard for anyone to scheme against that. But
totally.
Zimmer in particular seems to really struggle against that. So, and we don't have like super quick corners that can keep up with the quicker wide receivers. If the pass rush can't get home, it's hard to expect our corners to really do their job. So I'm pretty nervous about next week. Granted, it's the home opener. We have the crowd back behind us.
Yes.
I don't know, man. If it gets to 0-3, it's going to be really, really ugly.
Yeah, I know. I think it's kind of fair to assume that this feels like one of those slow starts we've had the last couple of years. Like, for instance, last year we started 0-2, and actually we went all the way to 0-4, I think, because I think that Seattle game.
I think we were 0-3.
0-3, okay.
Titans we lost to, and then I don't remember who week 4 was off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure we were 1-3.
Going to that Seahawks game, and then we dropped that one. Well, I think that was week 5. But yeah, anyways, long story short, I think there are, I suppose, some similarities to the way we started last season compared to this season. But at the same time, this feels a little bit different, because I think last year when we got to week 2 or got to the same exact point, we looked like a disaster against the Colts. Where today, obviously, it came all the way down to the wire, and realistically, we should have won the game. So it feels a little bit different in that aspect. I know it's still a loss is a loss at the end of the day, and there's we're working around that. We're still 0-2, and that doesn't make that much of a difference. But it's just nice to see that our offense felt like it was clicking again, where that was the big question mark after last week, and going all the way back through training camp of the preseason, that the offense just looks so discombobulated and kind of all over the place, and Kirk was just not in a rhythm with them. But then come off today, and then all 3 of our top receivers got in the end zone, so that was cool. And I think it just felt like our offense flowed, and that's going to be huge for us, obviously, going forward. And whether we have success or not this season, and hoping the defense can shore it up a little bit, then I think we'll be fine. Like, personally, I know I was telling you this after the game, Bailey, but I'm a firm believer. I know this can come back to bite me, and we could come back next week and it just looks bad, but like a bad take. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer we could win these next 4 games, run the table, because we have 3 home games in a row, and then right before the bye week, we go to Carolina. I think all 4 of these games are winnable. I realize Seattle and Cleveland are both playoff teams from last year, but I think both these games, especially at home, are winnable, or very winnable, I should say. And I really hope we can beat the Lions week 5 at home. If we can't, then we got a lot more problems on our hands. And I'm a firm believer that we can win these next 4 and right the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think Seattle is a winnable game. Their defense isn't very good. Obviously, Russell Wilson's going to be tough to stop, but if it's another shootout like today, I mean, we've kind of shown that we can play in a shootout. So I'm thinking we have a shot, but we haven't beaten Russell Wilson yet, so it's hard to expect it. Cleveland is beatable. They run a similar style offense that we do. Their defense is good, but it's not amazing by any means. So they have a good pass rush, which could be an issue against our offensive line. But yeah, if you can somehow steal those 2 games, you have crazy momentum going into a Lions and Panthers back-to-back there. And I agree with you. If you can get to 4-2 by the bye, you're sitting pretty darn good. But expecting them to win 4 games in a row,
that's a different thing. Yeah,
I don't know if they've done that. I don't know if they've done that outside of 2017. So
I want to say they did it in 2019 during Kirk's October, but
you might be right about that. But that was against some bad teams as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I think Detroit's bad, and I think Carolina, even though they're 2-0, and they'll probably be 3-0 after this Thursday night, if I were to guess at when I put the Texans. I still don't think they're for real. I'm not a Sam Darnold believer. I think he's definitely going to be better in Carolina than he was in New York, but at the same time, I don't think they're like world beaters or anything. So I think they're probably still, if I were to guess, a 6-7 win team, something like that for now.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, last year they started off pretty decent too with Teddy. They looked like they could be an up and coming kind of team, and then they just kind of flattened out. So yeah, I'm not too worried about Carolina. I would expect us to beat Detroit and Carolina, and then if you can steal those 2 other home games, that'd be huge.
Absolutely.
We got Bears fan Tanner here. Do you think the Vikings are going to struggle with the Bears now that Fields is starting? I would say yes, 100%. Andy Dalton got hurt today. Justin Fields got thrust into action. I think the Vikings are going to regret not trading up to get Justin Fields for years. I think he's going to be very good. I think he'll give the Bears stability at quarterback that they haven't had really ever. Yeah, I don't know. I'm worried about Justin Fields. I think if Aaron Rodgers ends up leaving Green Bay and the Vikings kind of have to do a little reset here as well, I think Justin Fields might run this division for a few years.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. I think I have to agree with you that I'm a little bit concerned about Fields being now firmly in the fold in Chicago. I don't think Dalton's getting that job back. So I'm a little bit worried about that because I'm a big Fields guy myself, like you are, because I think he's got all the natural talent in the world. It's just coming together in the NFL game, and I think it will personally. But, I mean, I guess you never know. I'm not very high on Matt Nagy and his development of a quarterback because obviously that just didn't work with Trubisky. But, I mean, we'll find out if it was Trubisky or if it was Nagy, really.
Right.
As far, or maybe a little bit of both. I mean, that's probably more likely the case. But still, I mean, Trubisky was just ugly. But that's what kind of worries me even more is that, like, we struggle to beat the Bears the way it is, no matter who they're rolling out there at quarterback, whether it's Trubisky, Chase Daniel, whoever. And it's just we have to, like, grind just to win those games if we even do. I mean, I can't remember last time we even beat the Bears at home, which is just bad. And, like, because, like I said, they haven't really had that quarterback stability. So I am very concerned about them getting a legitimate quarterback in there. And I think Fields is a real deal. But obviously, time will tell. I mean, he just got his first real playing time today, and obviously didn't looking at the box score didn't look great. Obviously, I didn't actually watch a game, but I think he's definitely just got all that natural ability in the world, and I was high on him in the draft. And like you said, this could be and end up being a pretty regrettable pass on a trade to go get him in this past April's draft.
Yeah, especially if Kirk Cousins isn't going to be in your future plans.
Yes.
Like say next year we move on, we have Kellen Mond, and we bring in a bridge quarterback. Or maybe we're picking high enough to draft another quarterback. I don't know. But you're going to look back this offseason and say, well, we could have had Justin Fields a year ago, and we didn't do it because Kirk Cousins was still here and we wanted to get him a left tackle. And that left tackle hasn't started the first 2 games. I'm guessing he's not going to start next week either. So
I think he'll come back during the homestand. I will say that. I think he's trending in the right direction, obviously, because he's been practicing. But obviously, it's been limited capacity so far. But I think it's only going to ramp up. As long as he doesn't have any setbacks, I think he'll return during the home stand here.
Yeah, and can we just talk about this year's draft class for a second? I mean, today, so no Darisaw, he's hurt. Kellen Mond, your next highest pick. Yeah, he's inactive, which we kind of expect, at least for the first part of the season here. Yeah. Chaz Surratt, inactive. Yeah. He's a game day inactive. He's healthy. He's your third-round pick. He's a raw linebacker that played quarterback at one point in college. Mm-hmm. Wyatt Davis is on the bench, which it's fine because
Udo's honestly been pretty decent.
Yeah, Udo's looking good at guard, so I understand that.
Davis at center.
You got Patrick Jones, the defensive end, who was a third-round pick. I don't know if he's played at all in these first two games. I don't know if I've seen him out there.
I don't think he has either, but at the same time that's another thing, I guess, makes you wonder when we brought in all these guys on the defensive line, like why we took him in the first place, because I could see why he hasn't, because I think we actually do have pretty deep defensive end room. Honestly, beyond here, I don't think any guy like specifically pops right now. And it's like, oh, that guy has to play the majority of the snaps with Hunter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they're all pretty solid players like Wanham, and then Griffin was out today, so you also have Weatherly mixing in there, who's I'd say he's pretty solid to be backup depth. But
yeah, for sure. And then fourth round, you got Kene Nwangu, who's on IR right now. He figures to hopefully make an impact, at least in special teams when he comes back.
Hopefully.
Amir Smith,
he could be a game breaker.
Yes, he could. Amir Smith-Marset could also be a game breaker.
Yes,
he's our current kick returner. He hasn't really gotten much of an opportunity. I'd like to see him in there on some offensive plays as well. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it's kind of a wash. I don't think we have anybody else really contributing. So
we got Janarius Robinson on IR. Got Cam Bynum, who's playing on special teams.
Yep.
And then beyond that, Jalen Twyman, another guy, is on IR. So
yeah.
How about that?
It's not looking great. And then even like D.D. Westbrook, like he had some solid returns today. He had the one really bad one where he ran back 2-yard line. That
was a disaster. Yeah.
He hasn't even seemed to break in the lineup yet of being a receiver though.
Mm-hmm. No, I haven't seen that either.
They're running 3 wide receiver sets, and they have like Conklin out there, one of the running backs, etc. So I don't know. I would like to see Amir Smith-Marset get in there at wide receiver a little bit. If D.D. Westbrook's just going to be the punt returner, I guess that's fine. With what
he's not making that much money.
Yeah, with what Osborne's bringing at receiver, I don't think we really need much out of Westbrook, honestly. So
no, I totally agree. And I really love the depth in this wide receiver room. I feel like we finally have some legitimate depth. Yes. And Thielen was right during training camp when he's like, yeah, I'm pretty excited about this wide receiver room, because I feel like I've heard this before in these last couple of years. I'm like, I just end up disappointed beyond the top 2 guys. But this year it actually feels legitimate. Like Osborne's an actual threat. And that's so nice to have in a wide receiver 3 again. Like I'm really excited about Osborne, like you said. I think there's some upside there that we haven't even reached.
Cameron's wondering when Anthony Barr will come back and if he'll give us a boost. I would say overall, I would assume he'd help a little bit. I noticed we had like guys like Blake Lynch playing at one point today. But what I will say is Nick Vigil has been way better than I think anybody's expected. This dude's making like $1 million. Had a pick 6 today. He was all over the field last week. I think he's played pretty good in Barr's absence.
Yeah, he's just a savvy veteran guy. I think he's filled Eric Wilson's role pretty well, and I can't complain with his performance so far these first couple games. But I think Barr will give us a little bit of a boost, like you said, when he comes back, eventually when he comes back. But I don't know if it'll be as drastic as I would like. But at the same time, I think he's just a guy that Zimmer always will beat the drum for, obviously. And I just think he's a guy that, even though we might not know it, but more intelligent football people, I guess I would say, would know that like offenses have to game plan around Anthony Barr, just because he's just this big athlete in the middle of the field that can kind of do a little bit of everything. So I think that would be a nice boost for us. And like you said, it's not like we just play 2 linebackers and that's it the whole game. So if we could have Barr on the field instead of, like you said, a Blake Lynch or something, all due respect, I think that could make a difference, especially in maybe some high leverage spots. You never know.
The only thing with Anthony Barr is, so it's pretty well known he's either got arthritis in his knee or tendonitis, one of the two. Mm-hmm. So I think this is an issue he's going to be dealing with all season, and I think it can kind of flare up whenever. So even if he is playing, I don't know how effective he's going to be. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he'll have, a brace or a sleeve or something on, but I just worry that he's going to be in and out of the lineup all year long, because this is an issue you just can't really take care of. So I don't know. I wouldn't expect a huge impact from Anthony Barr, but I think Eric Kendricks has looked like his all-pro self.
Yes, I love Kendricks.
Nick Vigil's looked good. Yeah. I would say there's been, there's a couple bright spots at each level of the defense. You got Hunter and Pierce on the defensive line. It'd be nice to see more out of Delvin Tomlinson, Sheldon Richardson, and then whoever's rotating in at that next defensive end spot. I think Stephen Weatherly's looked pretty good when he's been in the game.
Yeah.
He had Kyler slip away from him a couple times today, but he's gotten through and gotten to the quarterback. So
exactly.
And DJ Wanham, he's had a couple good reps as well, but he hasn't been super impressive overall. I think they just need a couple. They need more from a couple of those guys on the defensive line.
A couple of role players to make a play here and there. It doesn't have to be anything crazy or consistent, really, but just here and there, just be a nice little boost.
Exactly. I think Kendricks and Vigil, like we've talked about, have been very good. And then you got Patrick Peterson, who pretty much locked down DeAndre Hopkins today, minus that touchdown, which was kind of a long developing scramble play by Kyler Murray anyways. So that's tough to keep up with that. Harrison Smith still looks like his old self. And Xavier Woods had a pick today, and I think he's looked pretty good kind of flying around the field as well.
He is a nice player. I think he's a great replacement for Ant Harris, and I think this guy can ball. And I think he finally is getting a chance to play next to just an all-pro safety that he knows he can trust on the other side of him. So I think that's perfect, and I'm really excited to see his continued growth in this defense and just playmaking ability, because I think this guy can roam, and I think he's going to make some big plays for us this year.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. There's really quite a few good pieces on this defense, honestly. It's just I think where the holes are, like the second corner spot or the third corner spot or third linebacker. Exactly. Or like running at the second defensive end, stuff like that. So it's stuff that hopefully, like you said, will get shored up throughout the season. But with the way the offense has been playing, you gotta hold some teams down. We got to start winning some games here.
Exactly. It's just all got to come together.
Speaking of winning, Tanner's wondering, what record do you guys think the Vikings would need to have for Zimmer to keep his job?
We got to win at least 10 games. I'd say 10-7, and along with that, I think you got to make the playoffs and win at least one game.
I would agree with that. For me personally, it would be NFC Championship game or bust
to keep his job.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
But that's the way it should be. That's
honestly, send the bar high. I get it.
Because expectations going into the season where this team is going to compete, they're going to be good. They should win the division or hopefully contend for the division. You can't change your expectations as the season goes. If they start 0-2, you can't say, well, if they squeak into the playoffs, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Because that's not what you wanted at the beginning of the season. So
we'll win the division, propel us into some home field games in the playoffs and further.
I would say, so whatever it takes to win the division, whether it's 9 wins, 10 wins, whatever, and then win 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they're capable of doing it, honestly. But
I think they're capable. I think it can come together in a perfect world. Let me backtrack just a little bit. Not a perfect world, but an ideal world where most everybody stays healthy. Because if we're dipping into our depth too much, it's over. But
that's the problem, though. I feel like this team needs things to be perfect. Can't have any missed field goals or you're going to lose. You can't have, a bunch of penalties. Like the penalties obviously is a killer, but that set us back last week. And some, good teams find ways to win games. And right now it's appearing the Vikings are finding ways to lose games. And that's a very concerning trend for a team that's got a lot of talent, veteran heavy talent. The defense is older. We have the youngest offense in the NFL technically, but I think a lot of that has to do with the offensive line.
Really? I did not know that. Wow.
We do. So when you think about it, Jefferson's young. Thielen and Kirk are the only older players on the offense.
Man.
So
yeah, you think about it. Like you said, again, Zim guy. But let's hypothetically go down this road, and let's say we end up parting ways with Zim for whatever reason after this season, and we get an offensive guy, whether that's Clint or whoever. I mean, think about what they could be walking into with this offense. I think that's got to be a pretty attractive job out there on the job market for aspiring head coaches. But
you would think so. I mean, like we've kind of talked about before. Obviously, it's 2 games into the season. We don't want to, completely throw the season out the window.
No, I don't think we should. But
I'm kind of in the camp where I would like to see a reset because, like Johnny mentioned earlier, I'm sick of seeing mediocrity. I wouldn't mind a fresh start at head coach to a more offensive-driven guy, preferably younger, who relates better with players but still has respect. And then, obviously, Kirk has been good, but he hasn't been good enough. And that has nothing to do with today's game.
No, absolutely not.
Kirk
I'm
played,
not a Kirk guy, and I know you're not
yes.
either, but we can't blame him for this. I literally can't think of anything.
No, Kirk's not, like I said, not Kirk's fault today, but just the
Mhm.
overall product since he's been here in 2018. He's been good, but it hasn't been good enough. And whether or not it's his fault, it might not necessarily matter, but it doesn't matter whose fault it is. If the results aren't coming in, something's got to change. And I don't know. You can get rid of Zimmer, but I feel like if you bring in a new head coach, he's going to want to pick his quarterback. So
That's
there's
true.
there's a lot to happen yet this year, but it's something to think about because this team could look a lot different next year, but they don't have to completely rebuild. I mean, you got solid pieces. If you pay Hunter, you still got Pierce. If Peterson has a good year, you can bring him back. Harrison Smith is locked up. Kendricks is locked up. Offensively, Brian O'Neill's locked up. You got Jefferson for 3 more years at least. Thielen and Cook are under contract. Like, you have some really good pieces that are going to be here for a while. If you can just find the right coach quarterback combination,
That's huge.
You need those two positions specifically to help you overcome when things aren't going perfectly. Because more often than not, especially if with the Minnesota Vikings, things are not going to go perfectly.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the reality of it. Like you said, it seems like too many things have to go perfect for us as opposed to these other teams, these superstar quarterbacks and Sean McVays of the world. Like, it doesn't really matter if other things break down at some points during the game. More times than not, their connection with their QB is just going to bring them over the top anyways and still just go out and win games that they should. Obviously, that's not going to get it done against the very best teams in this league, but it's going to get it done against most. And really, that's what you need, at least for now, to get the playoffs and whatever it takes. But I think that's a good point. And I'd also add, now that we're talking about the firing of Zimmer, I like what Cameron had to say here, actually. If Zim was going, I mean, I'm personally, again, I'm a Rick guy too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now with everything that's happened or how things have gone to this point over this last month or so, I'd say, I feel like I've probably been farther off. I'm still on the Rick train, but like closer to taking a step off of it than I've been in ever, I think. And
Yeah.
I think it's got to be called into question if we have another mediocre season. I think everything needs to be evaluated. I think it starts from the top down in the front office with Rick and on down to Zim and obviously the personnel on this roster.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Overall, I've liked the job Rick Spielman's done. He's built competitive rosters. The Vikings haven't been a train wreck whatsoever since 2013. I guess was their worst season in the
2013, 5-10-1 or something.
Yeah, that was their last bad season. So really, since Zimmer's been here, it's been kind of a model of consistency. The problem is the consistency is like 7 wins, 8 wins,
I know.
10 wins. And then, the 2017, the fluke year where they win 13 games with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's built good rosters, which makes it tough to move on. But the depth is really concerning. And right now they're relying on a lot of veteran players that are on short-term deals. So when those short-term deals expire or someone else wants to pay these guys more than we can, then what do? Zimmer appeared to give up on Cameron Dantzler, and he comes in and looks good today. So it remains to be seen what we have with Cameron Dantzler. But Jeff Gladney, cut. Garrett Bradbury looks like a bust after 3 years. We've given him time. He hasn't looked good. Mike Hughes was a first-round pick. He's making interceptions for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Laquan Treadwell, we all know about him. Don't even
that was the worst one
about
on
him.
Yeah.
Now he's had some good depth picks, like Dalvin Cook was a second-rounder, Kendricks was a second-rounder, Hunter was a third-rounder.
Brian O'Neill was second-rounder.
Brian O'Neill, second-rounder.
Diggs was fifth round back in the day.
Exactly. Diggs was a fifth-round pick.
But this feels all kind of we're farther removed from all that. So
exactly,
what have you done for me lately? That's what this league's all about, and that feels like Rick's kind of lacking in that department. I mean, obviously, Justin Jefferson, that goes without being said, that's just a home run pick, and he obviously looks fantastic. But beyond Jefferson, like what's his calling card here among all of these draft picks we've had in these last few years where we set record after record every year basically with the amount of draft picks we've made in these drafts. So I don't know. I think there's definitely something to be said there about questioning Rick and possibly making a change there. It's just the scary thing. It's always, I think this goes for almost anything. And whether it's head coaching, GM, quarterback, whatever, it's always scary going into the unknown when you don't really know how somebody's going to fit in your organization, if it's really going to work or be better than what you had before. So I think we have a bunch of good pieces in place, but we want to be great. But at the same time, when you go make these changes, you might take a step back from where you are right now and be even worse. But, sometimes it would be for you to bottom out almost and then basically be able to bring your way back.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another thing I'll say about Spielman too, maybe come to his defense even a little bit. I feel like Zimmer influences a lot of these drafts, which he should. A head coach should have influence. Like
there should be a good relationship there.
Exactly, and I feel like that relationship is fraying. I think Zimmer is too headstrong about getting defensive players in here. And I think if he brought in a different head coach with a different perspective, maybe things would change in the drafting department as well. I think Spielman does a good job of manipulating the draft. He's good at, as much as it bugs people, he's good at trading back and getting additional value. He's also good at trading up when he needs to as well. He's traded back into the first round a couple times to select guys as well. So I overall, I'm not on the fire Spielman bandwagon. I think he can still do a good enough job. I'd say it's more so on the coaching staff failing to develop some of these players. And just, I think just kind of reaching, honestly, for guys that Zimmer wants. Like, you can't tell me Chaz Surratt was a Rick Spielman pick. I mean, that just feels like a reach by Mike Zimmer saying, oh, I like this guy's prototype. He reminds me of Anthony Barr. And, okay, he's been inactive now. I guess he was active last week. He was inactive this week. He's a third-round pick. He should be contributing at least a little bit.
No, I totally agree. I think some of these picks are definitely heavily Zimmer influenced. So you got to cut Spielman a little slack there just because maybe he'd draft entirely differently towards the top of these drafts when we take all these corners and stuff. Like maybe he'd take somebody else to maybe bring a little bit more value and maybe even in the immediate than what Zimmer wants. But yeah, maybe this, like you said, this relationship might be fraying a little bit, and maybe that's Spielman separating himself from Zim because, I mean, these guys are definitely on the hot seat going into the season, and who knows what's going to happen this year. But I think maybe Rick wants to separate himself from that if Zim's really going to get the axe from ownership, or ownership doesn't want to continue in this direction we're going in. So,
yeah, I think it'd be smart of Spielman to separate himself a little bit, just because I think the Zimmer thing it's slowly going into a ball of flames. He has a bad relationship with his quarterback. If his relationship with his GM isn't good, he's kind of on an island, and that's not really where you want to be as a head coach. So, man, I don't know. It's crazy that we got to this point. I mean, Zimmer's been around 8 years, which is pretty good. I think that's way better than the average for an NFL head coach, especially these days.
Absolutely. The only two coaches in the NFC that have been on with their teams longer than Zim has with the Vikings are Sean Payton with the Saints and Pete Carroll with the Seahawks. The difference between those two and Zim is that those two have won Super Bowls with their teams, and Zim is not with us.
Exactly. And I would say, Mike Zimmer is a good football coach, but is he a good head coach? I don't know. I mean, it's getting to the point where things aren't changing with him. He's trying to adapt his defense a little, I think, but it hasn't looked good so far. But the game has just changed so much since he came here in 2014. Like I said, I just don't think it'd be a bad idea to kind of reset a little bit. You don't have to blow it up. You don't have to trade away a bunch of guys. No. It's certainly an option if you want to get younger, but I think you can still win with like this current group of players, but you need a QB/coach combination to really make it work. Because look at the Rams. They've been kind of underwhelming the last couple of years, but now Sean McVay's got his guy. He went and got Matt Stafford. These guys love each other. They watch film together. They drink coffee together. I mean, it matters. It's all about chemistry and camaraderie. And
it's those human elements.
Zimmer just watched film with Kirk for the first time last week. Like, that tells you all you need to know. They're treating this like it's more so a job rather than a team. And that's kind of the issue I'm having with this whole thing. I don't think there's good vibes around TCO right now. And like I said, it worries me with guys like Jefferson and even Danielle Hunter, who's going to be coming up he could be a free agent after this year and just not want to come back. So,
oh boy,
it worries me. It worries me with guys like that they're looking at this situation and going, I don't know if I want to play here.
Speaking of things like that, we just got to find a good path to move forward, whether that's with Zimmer or not after the season. obviously, if we have a good year, I definitely want to keep Zimmer around. And if we don't, and it's just another or more mediocrity, then yeah, we definitely probably got to make a coaching change, I'd imagine. And like you said, we just got to find some clear direction and go in that um, feels like something everybody could buy into. I think that's very important, especially like you mentioned, Hunter among others, to really buy into and want to be here for the long term, especially a guy that's entering his prime. And honestly, I'd give him whatever money he wants. I think this guy's
Yes,
legit. I think he's the top five edge rusher in this league. So I'm all about it, about paying this guy. I think that's just something you do when you have a. If you're going to be a good team, you have a premier edge rusher, at least one of them. So I think
yep,
Hunter's that guy for us.
I agree. And it was nice to see he was able to actually like corral Kyler Murray a couple times today. Like
Yes.
Kyler tried running away and Daniil,
And he
caught
ran
back
him
up to
down.
him. Yeah, like Daniil missed him right off the bat, I think, and then he didn't let him go after that. So
Nope.
it's great to see him back to his elite form. I think we were all kind of expecting that as long as he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Um, there's just so much talent on this team. It's so disappointing that these guys are 0-2. I mean,
Because we could just as easily be 2-0, like Zim mentioned in his press conference. But yeah,
yes,
that doesn't really matter because, I mean, the reality of the situation is we're 0-2. We can't change that now. So,
exactly. And you want to talk about bad luck. Like Zimmer has had bad luck over his tenure here. The whole
yes.
Adrian Peterson situation, Teddy blowing his knee out. He like cut his eye or something. Like that was a
Yeah,
goofy situation. Bradford being out for the year. Luckily, Keenum was like the magic carpet ride.
I know, right?
How many offensive coordinators has he been through? It's like
Goodness.
it's just kind of been a mess, honestly. It's
Yeah.
been a somewhat organized mess, if you will. Like he's kept it together, and the team hasn't completely fallen apart, but there's just
Hmm.
been stuff along the way that kind of slowly derails them, and it's like how much longer can you put up with this?
Sure.
It's you might just need like a breath of fresh air, someone who comes in and has a different way of looking at things, and
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean,
Sometimes you do.
yeah,
And
I'm just kind of venting right now. Honestly.
yeah, no, that's hot about this game today, and understandably so when we lose right at the wire. That really sucks. That's going to leave a sting and a bad taste in your mouth, but that's just the nature of this league. And I would add too with Zim is it's just um, I don't know. I try to support him. Like on the one hand, I hate to see him get fired over our inability to be really successful over these last few years with Kirk because he didn't want Kirk in the first place. So that's another reason to probably call Rick's job into question is
Yeah,
he was probably the one that led the charge on this Kirk signing. So I think that's definitely a red flag on Rick's resume, I
for
would
sure.
say. But at the same time, I think Zimmer's got to make the most of it and adding on to it too. When you have a defensive coach and you once you have one good year, honestly, and like one good offensive year, I should say, then your offense coordinators keep cycling because once they're good, then they go find new jobs. Like for instance,
Yeah,
Stefanski, and he went and got the head coaching job in Cleveland. Now he rocks. But I think I think that's another thing is in such an offensive driven league, when you don't have stability on offense with your quarterback like Kirk that we're paying all
yes,
this money to, I think there's a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? A bit of a disadvantage, I guess I would say,
yeah,
to compared to other true contenders in this league that have the same thing over and over again with offensive minded head coaches. Like you said, it goes back to building the human relationship too with the quarterback, first of all, but just having that familiarity with the same offensive scheme and everything so you can really perfect it. And then you don't have to worry about what happens in these preseasons when guys seem like they're out of sync because
yep.
they'll get it together because they've been here, done that. So I think that's another thing to consider.
And that almost makes you wonder, like, is it worth it then to just go get that offensive head coach?
Yeah,
And if he's a
exactly.
head coach, he's not leaving for anywhere. So,
Exactly. So then you'll have that for the long haul, and it just depends. You think you can plug some guy in on defense that can do the job, and
yep,
um, or you can just keep filling that role. I mean, I would think so, but I mean, I guess you never really know. But I feel like offense is a pretty tough thing, especially when you have the same quarterback, but you just have a revolving door offensive coordinators. I think that can be hard on a quarterback, the most important position on your team.
yeah. And I think like you could keep like the new offensive coach could come in and keep a guy like Andre Patterson, keep some
Yes,
stability on this defense,
sure.
make him the full defensive coordinator. I know he's splitting it with Adam Zimmer right now, which is a joke, but just make him the full time defensive coordinator. This guy knows this defense in and out.
For sure.
He knows how to develop defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do if I was an incoming coach. Just let him take care of the defense. The guys know him. That's fine. Just trust him with that, and then you can kind of mold your offense. Bring in a coordinator you're comfortable with, someone that can kind of run your offense as you'd like. It'd be really nice to bring in an offensive coach that doesn't necessarily have to call the plays, because I'd really want a head coach that is in tune with clock management, game management, when to challenge, when to use timeouts, when to try for another play or two at the end of the game to get some more yards for your kicker.
Yeah. Honestly, I should look up how many teams in this league really have their head coach call plays, whether it's offensive, defensive, and what the percentages really are, as far as especially teams that are consistently in the playoffs, and kind of see what they do, because obviously it's a copycat league. So obviously, if you feel like your head coach calling plays gives you the best chance to win, you should do that. But at the same time, it'd be nice if you had assistants you could trust to delegate that to, and
exactly
feel comfortable doing that. So then you can kind of take a step back and look at the team from a upper view, I should say, as a whole. So
yeah, it's like a manager at any sort of position. Like, they're supposed to oversee the whole operation, and it just doesn't feel like that's what's happening right now. It feels like Zimmer said, "Hey, Clint, you take care of the offense," which people will say defense wins championships, but it is clear as day.
Offense it does in the championship,
yes,
but not
exactly.
To get there.
Offense is the most important factor. Yeah, it's the most important factor in today's game. Look at tonight's Chiefs-Ravens game. It's 35-30 right now. I mean, and that's every week for the Chiefs.
Yep.
And granted, they have the best quarterback and possibly the most talented quarterback to ever play the game.
Yep.
But it's also Andy Reid's forward thinking, his creativity,
exactly.
Him willing to risk it to go for fourth downs, more in tune with analytics. We got the Twins, who are way too into analytics, and then we got the Vikings, who hate analytics. Can we find a happy medium here? I guess before we take off here, looking ahead to next week, what is your main thing, I guess, you'd like to see fixed?
I think it seems kind of broad and kind of simplistic, but after today, I just want to see the defense come up better right away. I think it should. Playing behind a nice loud crowd that's behind them, I think that's going to help. But at the same time, I just think we came out flat-footed. I think we got to be able to contain a mobile quarterback like Wilson, because obviously there's a lot of similarities there with Murray, and Murray just had a field day today. Obviously, beyond they made a couple nice plays getting those interceptions, but at the same time, I think we just got to come out better right out of the gate, so then we don't put our offense in a situation where we have to sit there and trade scores.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd like to see us more so as just like a whole, just take control of the game, and ride it from start to finish. I mean,
exactly.
Go grab the lead. Like today, we had a chance to get up like 14-0 right off the bat.
We got up 20-7 for what that's worth, though.
That is true, but just go put your foot on them right away and don't let off. Like today in the third quarter, we just kind of let off the gas. We went 3-and-out a few times. Let the Cardinals climb back into it. It's like, just for once, just like even if it's a good if it's a good team, I would like to see all three phases come together. And that's another thing with the Zimmer era. It just feels like, for some reason, whether it's his fault or not, whether it's bad luck, we can't get all three phases to come together and just have a real solid game against a good opponent. Like a couple of years ago, we were just famous for winning the noon game on Fox against a crappy team that's not going to go anywhere. And this year, we lost to the Bengals, and the Cardinals are probably like a wild card team.
Plus, there's not as many games on the schedule this year as I can remember.
It is a difficult
previous schedule. Vikings season. So,
yeah, exactly. It's a very difficult schedule. I mean, that's part of it too. But if you're a good team, you beat the teams on your schedule. It's as simple as that. So,
that's true.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's disappointing. Hopefully, they can turn it around next week against Russell Wilson. I think that'd be a big, big win. But if they don't, I don't know, man. I think you're going to start hearing some real calls for Zimmer's head. I mean, I don't know.
Let's hope it doesn't get to that, but it very well could.
It very well could. But we'll talk about it more this week as well on different episodes of the podcast. It's always good to do these post-game shows. Hopefully, we can keep growing this little platform as well. Get some more comments going in here.
Yes.
Maybe eventually even have people joining the show as well. So
that'd be great. I love doing this for sure.
yeah, it's nice to vent a little bit after the game, kind of go through what you're thinking.
Get it all off your chest.
Yeah, where they can go from here, reasons for optimism, reasons for pessimism. Yeah, so we'll get back at it again. Yes, for sure. We'll get back at it again next week here on the North Star Takes podcast. Once again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button and you're watching right now, especially if you're a Vikings fan, pound that subscribe button, baby. Give us a like on this video as well. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, which are included in our intro and outro. Yeah, thanks for watching.